You got something for me?
What's going on, everyone? It's Alex. Welcome back to the channel. Here's my first video on Ms. Marvel. I was going to post some theory videos and then time and life got crazy, so this is my big all-in-one video. I'm aware the finale isn't out yet, so a few things might change, but overall I've cemented my thoughts about this series, and I'm going to break it down into three main parts: the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then I'll mix in some theory stuff as well regarding the future of Ms. Marvel and a little bit of that finale. So if you're new to the channel or just like Marvel, the MCU, comics, and everything in between, subscribe. Other than that, let's get into the video. Let's go. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my overall thoughts. I'm not the biggest fan of Ms. Marvel, but by no means do I think it's bad, and it's awesome that so many people are loving it. But I'm finding it hard to be excited each week. I did know about the clandestine and Jin changes that were coming, which some people weren't happy about at all, but it could have worked well in my opinion. However, it falls flat, and so does the overall plot for me, but let me save that for later. Let's talk about the good. Episode 1 was fantastic. It was bright, filled with creativity. It was just fun in general. I absolutely loved the story. I loved Kamala. I thought the family dynamic was awesome, which it still is, and it just had so much heart pumped into it. It was new, it felt fresh, it felt unique. Using the visual comic nods was amazing too, whether that was splitting the screen in half like a comic book and folding it in on itself like a page, conveying emotion through emojis in the background or through city shop signs, or even text messages on the sidewalks. Ms. Marvel Episode 1 was a visually perfect aesthetic. It sets up a wonderful story and main character. I really enjoyed Bruno and Nakia, and yes, I do know that the castings aren't part for part accurate, but that aside, the actual actors did a really good job. Especially Kamala's parents, who throughout are very, very good. It's just a really strong pilot episode, and episode 2 was also pretty good, but then boom, it turns into a completely different show, just MacGuffin chasing. So let's move into some of the bad. I do want to mention though that the guys who directed the first episode are also doing the finale, so hopefully the finale does mimic basically what happened in that first episode, and it's a little bit more creative and more fun. Now, while I love learning about different cultures, I'm not sure if going to Pakistan was the right idea in the first series for a brand new character. I think what gave the first few episodes that charisma and joy was it being grounded as a young girl in Jersey City, just finding her way. And that's essentially what Kamala is in the comics. The plot though takes a turn for the worse because the writing is pretty bad, or inconsistent I should say. I loved all the touching moments, and that's where this show shines within its heartfelt family story and the importance of how immigrants shaped the United States. Hell, it actually hits home for me because my grandfather came to America, like he always says, with $10, a bag of books, and a dream. It was hard, but he made America his home, and I love all the hints that are sprinkled in these episodes, especially through Kamala's mother. But when we talk about the actual plot lines, it's pretty rough. And it's okay if we disagree, but I can't be on board with how choppy it feels. In episode 3 and 4, we learn a lot about Kamala's roots and what the Noor dimension is, but beyond that, a lot is happening and also nothing is happening in not a lot of time. This series definitely suffers from the Disney Plus formula. Now, I don't believe that 6 episodes is the actual problem, and I'll stand by that because Loki was 6 episodes and it crafted a very good ending, because it focused on one singular plot point: get to the man behind the castle. Ms. Marvel is juggling a lot, and it's not using the full runtime. When Disney Plus was announced, it was marketed as a way to tell a 6-hour story. And none of these shows, I believe, besides WandaVision, made it past 4.5 hours. The remainder is credits, intros, and recaps. It's basically just a double movie runtime pushed into a series, and it doesn't really work out all that well. So let's get into the ugly. Episode 5. This episode of Ms. Marvel is 41 minutes long. If you remove all the add-on fluff, this episode was barely 30 minutes long. And it's a penultimate episode in a 6-episode series. Now, while I really enjoyed seeing all the history, her great-grandmother in the partition depicted in a very respectful manner during that first half of the episode, Kamala Khan, the main character, had a total screen time of about 13 minutes in this episode. And next week she will be going into her final episode of the series. It's just too short. This episode felt rushed for no reason. Like I said, the first half of the episode does a really great job showing you the origins of why this bangle is so important to her and how much her family legacy is a part of her, but have we actually learned about the actual bangle itself? In episode 3, we get a quick glimpse at what looks to be a Kree hand, and many assume this is Kree technology or Maybe it's tied to the idea of the quantum bands, but just using energy from the Noor dimension. But none, and I mean none of this is really ever brought up again outside of Waleed, who by the way we needed more of, he was great. But there's just really no explanation for a lot of things in this series. And a lot of the Disney Plus shows unfortunately do kind of feel like that. We got a reference to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings with the logo, and then nothing is built upon that. I wish we can kind of maybe just take some time to look into these types of Easter eggs or explore origins and such like that, but there's not a whole lot of connectivity. I know overall the main goal, or the next endgame as some people like to say, isn't as clear, and that's completely fine because this is basically phase 1, but small things like that I feel like should really be touched upon. In the ending to episode 5, I legitimately thought my TV glitched. This has to be the most abrupt ending in the history of television. It was so fast it nearly cuts off mid-sentence and mid-explosion, and brings back Damage Control, who have had a total of 3 scenes in the entire show, and now suddenly they become the main villain of the finale after Najma just sacrifices herself by just standing next to the portal. That scene had a lot of potential, but it's so fast. That's why I mentioned the runtime should have been used better. That entire episode could have been an exploration of her roots, but instead we get a scene similar to the skeletons from Spider-Man 2002. It just doesn't work for me, and quite frankly, I don't know how it works for anyone, but like I said, if we disagree, that's okay. It leaves a lot to be desired in my opinion because of the potential it had, but her sacrifice isn't essentially earned. It was a rushed episode that just could have used more time. Now I know we still have the finale, but I can't see how this finale wraps up and is better than a few of the ones that we've recently got. I know this will tie directly into the Marvel, so you can expect a Captain Marvel cameo, because there have been rumors and leaks of Funko Pops, so it's possible more about the Bangle and her powers are explored, but I wouldn't get your hopes up about her being an Inhuman. If Carol Danvers isn't in the actual finale, expect a post-credit scene that ties into the Marvel's movie. We do know that Bruno, Nakia, and her family have scenes in that movie, so the direct connection will be there. It's also possible that we get some Skrull hints due to Secret Invasion being tied into the Marvel's movie as well. That's why I hold my breath hoping that most of this stuff gets explained, but right now it's a lot to pack into a finale. These power changes for Kamala were made to be cosmic for a reason. She's the third piece with 2 other cosmic powered beings in the same movie. I know the director said that Hardlight isn't her final form in her powers, but I can't see how drastically they change out of this unless she fully breaks the crystallization. Which also leads me to mention that we have barely seen her use her powers or stretch, so maybe that's what they're referring to. I firmly believe that these purple constructs and Noor energy are the final form of her powers, at least to a degree, but I'm assuming that they develop or slightly evolve them moving forward. In footage, we have seen that she can fully body stretch in the finale, and apparently there were some reshoots and changes that slightly affected the ending, so we'll see what happens. I also believe though that she's just inherently gifted from her ancestry, and the Bangle activated her cosmic powers. Maybe by the end she can control them without the Bangle. I will admit though that they could have made a late retcon in the editing stages, and it's possible that this was actually Terrigenesis, and the reason that they died is because they were not actually Inhuman, and only Jinn or clandestine based. Regardless, in the canon conversation, it does look a bit like how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did also, and like we learned, Kamala isn't a Jinn and she's technically not clandestine either, so the Inhuman potential is there, but if it does come, I'm sure there's going to be a twist in the MCU universe. Overall though, I think this show had a lot of potential. I mean, it is doing extremely well with critics and most fans, so I may be in the minority here, and while I do like a lot of the show, I'm just not invested into some of the poor plot writing, and the clandestines being arguably as bad as Carly from Falcon and Winter Soldier, Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Malekith from The Dark World. Just not great villains. So I hope they land the finale, but we'll see. I'll likely post a clip from the podcast when we discuss this, so comment your thoughts below about this, and let me know how much you're enjoying or not enjoying Ms. Marvel. You can follow me on Twitter at AnotherMarvelG, or join my Discord, the links are in the description below. Drop a like to support the channel, and other than that, I just want to say thank you. I'm Another Marvel Guy, and I'll catch y'all on the blip.